Hey everyone, welcome to week 39. This is day 5, last day of our ongoing GREYS week. So we've tried to approach our paintings in very different ways to see if we can achieve grayness. And for Monday, we did raw umber as being the dominant color in our palette. Tuesday, we went with our primary colors and mixing complementaries. Wednesday, we painted with all earth palette, and yesterday we painted a base made up of titanium white and raw umber, and we painted on top of that gray base. So 4 different ways to approach grayness, and today we'll do it in a completely different way and we'll see how it goes. Next week hopefully we'll have a background and not just our room, but it'll have to do for this week. Thank you guys. Next week, new theme, so we'll see you there. Bye.
Okay, let's get started. This is Friday. This is our last day on our GREYS week. I thought it would be cool if we would finish off this week with something that's a little weird, and it has to do with our color choices. Now, there's going to be a comeback. I hinted at this yesterday, where we are going to call a couple of colors that were part of an exercise that we did a couple of weeks ago. The exercise was our complementary week, and this was the last day of that week. This is where we painted our Thanos hand. And this was a painting that I did where I used a Michael Harding, I think it was a transparent yellow. That was complimentary. It was a gift. I mean, literally complimentary. It was a gift that the art store sent me for buying my titanium white number 3, the one that has dryers. And it came with primary colors. It came with that transparent yellow, it came with a red, and it came with an ultramarine blue, if I'm not mistaken. So beautiful colors. Obviously, Michael Harding does some of the most beautiful colors out there. I haven't used it since, but I was very happy with the experience I had on that painting, because I realized that these 2 colors were almost perfect complementaries. Now, what that means is that when they come together, they form this very neutral gray. This doesn't happen with every single pigment that belongs to a primary or secondary hue. So any yellow is not the perfect complementary for any violet or purple. That doesn't work that way. Usually you have to really, really try and work hard to find which 2 colors are really good complementaries. I know that there's artists out there that go through the incredibly hard and tough job of finding different pigments and different brands, and they test them to see if they are perfect complementaries. And that's commendable. That's an admirable job, especially for those people that do want to construct a palette based on those things. That doesn't necessarily have to be the answer for all of us. For example, the primary colors that I have do not really make perfect complementaries between them. The violets available to me when trying to balance out my yellow hue, which is bismuth yellow, are the violets that I could mix with either ultramarine blue and cad red or ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. So between those, I can honestly say that I can gray out a yellow or gray out a violet. I don't know if they're absolutely perfect complementaries. The same thing could be said for the mix of my bismuth yellow and ultramarine blue, that green being a perfect complementary for either my cad red or my alizarin crimson. That doesn't really quite work that way. I think if you haven't checked it out, please check out our week on complementary colors, because I think it's very exciting, and we actually thought a lot about what it means to be a complementary color. And we did 5 very cool different exercises trying to see what worked, and despite some colors not being perfect complementaries, acknowledging that we could do a really nice painting with that limited of a palette. But today we brought what I thought in my mind were like the superstars of that week, that yellow, that transparent yellow, and dioxazine purple, which is a crazy pigment. In my mind, I still think that that is an insane color. I don't know how I could use that color day in and day out and just put it in my palette and confidently say, yeah, I'm going to paint with dioxazine purple. It makes me even nervous. Like, this is nervous laughter, just trying to conceive that I could just permanently put dioxazine in my palette. It's just kind of crazy. Anyways, I was shocked And this is like ignorance shock, honestly. But I was shocked that these two colors, when coming together, were actually so good for each other. It just amazed me. Honestly, I just wasn't expecting it. And it was very cool and very surprising. And I absolutely love surprises in painting. I love when I try something out and I think I know how to paint, and suddenly everything I think I know kind of comes tumbling down, and I have to reconstruct the ideas and the experiences that I have of painting. I love when that happens. So when I was using these two and I mixed them with titanium white, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So for this week, I said, well, let's invite them again and let's try to do a very, very different painting from that Thanos painting. And let's just do, GREYS. Let's really see how much they can cancel each other out. And let's construct a painting and try to be very sensitive with the richness that I could get within the painting. But let's see if I can construct a painting where it, very subtly fluctuates from a yellow gray to a more violet purple gray to a browner gray, I noticed, happens when these two come together. And let's really test and see if it actually is like a perfect neutral, or if it was just better than everything that we tried during that week. I think it's a little bit of both. I'm telling you guys what I concluded because when I did my first mix with them and I introduced yellow into that purple, it becomes very red. It becomes like an almost earthy red color. It's kind of crazy. Colors are crazy. I mean, they're absolutely insane. I have no idea how we paint. It's a miracle that we can do anything. But I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when I saw that happening, I was like, well, this is going to be then earthier. I mean, there's going to be a ton of undertones of yellow and red and purple underneath there. And I don't really think I'm going to be able to paint something that feels quite neutral. Because my idea for this painting was to just have these colors that have very obvious hues to them, and they have very obvious saturation. I mean, this yellow, for a transparent yellow, still packs a punch. And dioxazine purple, oh my God, that's like a kidney punch. That color can really surprise you. So there is no doubt that we are starting from saturation, from two colors that have really distinct personalities. And to think that the two of them plus titanium white, again, titanium white is like the unsung hero here. There's all this weirdness going on when we mix these two colors, and we completely need titanium white to come in and say, okay, settle down. I'm going to bring everything down a notch, and I'm going to help also to create this gray harmony. So let's not forget about this. I am a huge fan of titanium white. A lot of people don't like it, but I absolutely love it for what it is. And this is going to be a big, parenthetically, but let's get into this. Some people wrote in and suggested that we go deeper into the use of certain colors. And a lot of you guys that are super faithful to these videos and that have watched 200 videos by now. This is our 200th video, by the way. So, woohoo! Congratulations, everyone. We're still here. That's crazy. So, for the people that have watched all of the videos, you guys know already what my stance is when it comes to colors. I do not like to impose a use onto a color. I really try to be careful, and I try to catch myself if I say, I'm pretty sure I don't say it now almost at all, but if I say something like, oh, you know what? Raw umber is very good when you mix it with burnt sienna and you can paint skin. No. Ugh. I don't want to say that. I don't like to say that. Has raw umber or a ton of other earth tones been used historically to paint, for example, portraits? Yes, of course. I mean, they were part of the artist's palette, but they were also used to paint dirt and trees and skies and clouds and fabric, anything. Painters painted anything with every color that they had. They had to make the best out of their palette. They didn't just say, oh no, this color is only good for X, Y, or Z. No, those were their options. They had to really push their palette and try to make the most out of it. If they hadn't done that, we would know nothing about painting. Painting wouldn't have advanced at all. So if anything, the underlying value, all that hard work that all these people, amazing people from Renaissance, High Renaissance, Baroque painting, all the hard work that these people went through was to let us know through their painting that you had to really, really understand how colors behave with each other. But, and this was the most important thing, you can't really just preemptively say, you color are good for this. As soon as you say that, as soon as you encapsulate this color, this beautiful pigment, into a very particular use, then you're denying it from every other possibility that it has to express itself within the possibilities of your palette. And that is very, very sad. So you'll never ever hear me say, well, raw umber is very good to temper white. Why does titanium white need to be tempered? As if we find it menacing in a way. What is menacing about it? Colors are what they are. They're not good or bad. They just are. What is titanium white? It is a chalky, very opaque, very strong, cool, very light color. That's what it is. Period. And when we take a step back and we just speak about a color for what it is, then we can start using it. We are obviously emotionally going to have connections to colors. And that's why I say, oh my God, this, dioxazine purple is insane. Yeah, the color is not insane. Of course, the color is not insane. The color is not crazy. The color is what it is. What I'm speaking about is probably my inability to introduce it in the palette and to find ways to work with it harmoniously. But to say that a color can only be understood if it's put to use in the sense of painting portraits, or no, like raw umber was great for an underpainting in the Baroque. Earth tones were very popular in underpaintings in the Baroque. Is that the way to paint? Please, we've had 3 centuries of painting after that where people have tried so many things. We've gone through wars. We have tried to be a more sensible species. So please, that's not the only way to paint. And if you guys have seen me paint, I am for everything except limiting myself. Yeah, I have limitations like every single painter has, like every single human being has. But I am at a point where I actually see my palette and I see it for what it is. I see the relationships that all those colors that are in my palette can construct. But I don't anticipate myself and I don't tell my colors, yeah, you're good for this. If I'm painting skin, I'm going to use you and you. Imagine that. Imagine having like a recipe book of if I'm painting a blue sky at 8:15, I'm going to use these 2. If I'm painting a blue sky at 12, I'm going to use you 3. If I'm painting a pork chop at 6:40, I'm going to use you, you, and you. And now I'm going to share with you guys how to paint a pork chop effectively with raw umber. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's insane. We can't anticipate all the variables that can occur in nature and then equate them with specific colors. That is crazy. That is crazy to think that what we have to do is to start making all these equations, these endless, boundless equations of paint in order to be able to paint effectively anything. That's so crazy. What we can do is understand colors for what they are. So understand if they're transparent, understand if they're opaque, understand if they're saturated. What is their hue? What color do they lean towards? And more importantly, how do they behave with the other colors that we have in our palette? Because I don't understand. Like when we say, yeah, I use titanium white, but I use raw umber to temper it. Why then have titanium white in your palette? Why would you put something in your palette if you want to say, oh my God, this is way too saturated? If you want a color that is saturated, have it in your palette. If you don't want a color that is saturated, don't have it in your palette. It's as easy as that. I talked to you guys about how it took me 18 years to put a saturated yellow in my palette. I recently just decided consciously that I was going to keep my bismuth yellow in the place of my yellow ochre, which I've loved. I mean, it even hurts for me to say, I'm going to take my yellow ochre out and just put bismuth yellow in its place. 18 years. 18 years for me to say, I am willing to accept the saturation of this color. And it doesn't mean that all my paintings are going to be saturated, but what it does mean is that I am at a place where I can say, oh, I want a little bit more saturation, and it's there in my palette, and I can access it. It's right there. Painting at its core is not complicated. People can get so confused when they're painting, And the best thing to do at that moment is to supply super simple answers to what people think are complicated questions. And umber is just that. It's just a natural gray, and it can gray out your hues without making them shift. So that's amazing. That's super simple. These things are totally objective. Like nobody would ever say, no, I don't agree with that. No, dude, it's like right there. It's in front of us. Very, very simple things. So what I always tell people is don't read recipes of what colors you're supposed to use and what colors are good for. This is a red good for lips. What does that mean? What the hell does that mean? That is so crazy. That's insane. You know, it's the year 2020. We should never catch ourselves speaking something like that. Like, oh, that's good for shadows. What do you mean shadows? Come on. I mean, we have to know better. We really should know better. So I know that there is like an academic spirit to what we do here with the channel. And me being a painter, but also a teacher for the last, 15, 16 years, I know the expectation that we can have when we read about painting, when we read about painting technique, or when we watch a video like this. I know, I totally understand it. But in many ways, I've also told you guys that I hope that the information that we can give is helpful for somebody. If it helps one person out there, I'm totally satisfied. But I also know that this is my path. This is my path. I mean, these exercises speak about my journey. And I would never even imagine imposing my journey onto other people. Same way we shouldn't impose a use onto a color. In that same sense, I would never tell people, like, this is how you're supposed to paint. This is what's supposed to matter to you. Do we all need a starting point? Yeah, sure. And the fundamentals of painting can be our starting point. We all share them. It doesn't matter, who teaches painting. If they're teaching you about value and hue and chroma, that's fine. Then you're good. You're going to have all the information you need to start. And then it's up to you. Then it's your path, and you have to construct your own path. I hope that people can see what we do with our channel and celebrate, as we do, because we are super happy doing it, but celebrate what it is and not dwell upon something that it's not. And that's where I always tell people, and I say it with a smile and an open heart, I always tell people, dude, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, go look at James Gurney's videos and paintings and read his books because they are amazing. That dude is a national treasure. He is one of the kindest, one of the coolest painters out there, and there's so much to be learned from what he teaches. Go take workshops if you can. If you have painters that you look up to and that you admire and you know that they're giving a workshop, go. If they're giving a talk, go. Gather as much information as you can, because all of that is just going to help you pave your way. All of that information is going to make you feel stronger and more confident when you have to lay down the path that you're going to walk on. Okay, back to our painting. Today is a great example. These two colors, I never expected, what would happen with these two colors. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to say, hey, of course I knew that Michael Harding's transparent yellow and Winsor Newton's, dioxazine purple were perfect complementaries. What? Yeah, that's crazy. But what I can do is say, wow, I noticed this while I was painting, while I was doing this exercise the other day. And I'm going to do a new exercise trying to see if I can push the grayness out of these two colors. And that's what we did today. It's a very simple painting, very basic painting. If I'm trying to contextualize it with other painters' work, because I've been talking a lot, Daniel Pitin's work, I completely recommend him. I just love how the painting kind of breathes. It goes from very loose, very abstract notions of space, and then it kind of contracts and it lands on form, and it has like this sense of gravity in form, and then it goes and opens back again and then lands again. I absolutely love his work, particularly his older work, maybe work that is like 10 years old. I just love all that stuff. So this painting of Danny kind of reminded me of Pitin's work, and how she's surrendering this kind of nature that is constructing her, and she's becoming kind of more abstract and deconstructed as she fades into this more expressive plane, this world of just broken strokes that is the left side of the painting. So the painting is being constructed from right to left, which is kind of weird because we don't really read from right to left. We usually read as Westerners from left to right. And if you're reading this painting left to right, it's actually bouncing you back to the left. So you start to the left, you see this broken painting, you go through Danny's expression and then down the ramp that is that hunching back, and then it pushes you again towards the face, the more abstract kind of very gestural hand, and then everything else just kind of, I don't know what I'm doing there, it just disappears towards the left back again. So you kind of come into this world that is fading to almost get thrown out of this world. So I really like the pulse of doing a painting like this. And I wanted to be a little bit cheeky, and I put like this horizontal yellow mark from one of her jackets, because this is actually in a closet that was hanging. I wanted that to be the slightest of accents in the painting, and I wanted to evidence that. So I was very, very happy about that. And yeah, these two colors, while they do have like an earthish, reddish undertone, when you are sensitive enough to navigate that yellow, red, purple mess that is the meeting of these two colors, you are going to find grayness in there, and you can 100% make a very, very gray painting. Is it perfectly neutral? No, not absolutely perfect. I'm beginning to think that it is very, very hard to have perfectly neutral grays come out of two colors that are very saturated. That was it for today. I think it was a really cool week. And hopefully what comes out of this week is, one, again, colors have no use. Colors do not have a use. They don't have this thing printed in their labels where they tell you should use me for this and this and this. When we are doing that, we are limiting ourselves so much. I mean, you cannot believe the world that you're missing whenever you just use a certain color for a certain thing. And by the way, that probably even means that you're just painting the same thing over and over again. So we have to shake some of that off and say, come on, let's check ourselves, let's wake up and know that we are bigger and broader than the things that we paint. We are painters beyond our subject matter. We can actually paint anything that we want, and we would find ourselves in that anything. Our subject matter is the universe. We don't have to paint a single thing just because we think we're good at painting that single thing, and because we think we've found effective ways to display that thing in paint, to interpret that thing, that one thing through paint. No, we are bigger than that. If we don't realize we are bigger than that, we're acknowledging the small painters that we are, and we don't want to do that. We want to feel boundless. We want to feel limitless, and that's amazing. So that was it for this week. Possibilities. This is all about possibilities. This is all about understanding that grayness doesn't mean void of anything. Grayness doesn't mope around because it doesn't have chroma. The idea of grayness can be so much broader and so much richer than what we usually think of, that it's a nice way to celebrate it, to take time, 5 paintings, 5 days. It's a good enough time to say, I'm going to relish the nature of grayness. So that was it. As we always say on Fridays, Danny and I thank you for letting us be your company, and hopefully we can count with your company for our next week, where we are going to have a whole new theme. So we'll see you guys there. Thank you. Bye. Cha-cha-cha-cha.